This is the Golden Gate. It's the east gate. It's known as the Mercy Gate to Jerusalem. As you can tell, it's been sealed up for a long, long time.
The gate, long sealed for the return of Jesus, has just swung open. What happens now? The Golden Gate in Jerusalem, locked since the 16th century, holds deep prophetic significance. According to the prophet Ezekiel, the gate would remain shut until the arrival of a prince, believed by Christians to be Jesus. Now that it's open, could this signal a profound shift in human history? This remarkable event directly connects to Ezekiel's prophecy in chapter 44, verse 13 of the Bible. Ezekiel foretold that the gate would stay closed until the prince, the Messiah, comes to reclaim it. For Christians, this gate isn't just a piece of ancient architecture, it's a sacred symbol representing the path to eternal life through Jesus, reinforcing the biblical promise of salvation. The Eastern Gate, also called the Golden Gate, isn't just a historical landmark, it's a timeless spiritual icon. Its story shapes not only the physical layout of Jerusalem, but also the religious identities of Jews, Christians, and Muslims. This gate stands as a profound intersection of faith and history, holding deep significance across major religions. Traditionally, the Eastern Gate is believed to be the entrance the Messiah will use when he returns to Jerusalem. This belief, rooted in both Jewish and Christian prophecy, elevates the gate's importance beyond mere history. It embodies the hope of divine fulfillment. Its closure wasn't random. In the 16th century, Sultan Suleiman ordered the gate sealed, not just for military reasons, but with clear religious intent. Many saw this as the fulfillment of Ezekiel's prophecy, a sign that ancient predictions were unfolding and that the world was moving toward a pivotal moment in spiritual history. The sealed gate serves as a powerful reminder of how faith and history are intertwined. Human actions, even centuries ago, continue to influence spiritual understanding and future expectations. It reflects the human desire for meaning and the eternal search for connection with the divine. But the story doesn't end there. The sealed gate symbolizes a core Christian belief that Jesus is the only way to God. The anticipation of the gate's opening fuels the hope of Jesus' return, an event that could change the course of history forever. Many believers see the reopening of this sealed gate as a powerful sign of Jesus' return and the fulfillment of God's promises. This belief weaves together the past and the future, blending ancient prophecies, historical events, and core Christian teachings into one continuous thread of faith. God's plan for humanity's salvation is said to be complete, and His kingdom is now established. At the heart of this divine narrative stands a historic gate in Jerusalem, a city sacred to multiple faiths and the backdrop of pivotal religious events. But this gate is more than just an ancient structure. It represents God's eternal promise and the deep hopes of believers worldwide. For Christians, the Eastern Gate is more than a relic of the past. It's a living symbol of faith and the anticipated return of Jesus. Its presence inspires both believers and scholars, reminding them of the unbreakable link between the physical and spiritual worlds. The gate stands as proof of faith's enduring power, shaping religious thought even today. Jerusalem's old city is surrounded by 8 main gates, but the Eastern Gate, facing the Mount of Olives, holds a unique status. Built around 520 AD, it is considered the oldest of the gates. Christians refer to it as the Golden Gate because of its profound historical and spiritual significance. Its sealed entrance has become a key symbol in the unfolding story of prophecy and faith. But the real mystery lies in the gate's closure. The fact that it remains sealed fuels countless interpretations and prophecies. Its connection to Ezekiel's vision and its position facing the Mount of Olives, where Jesus is believed to have ascended, adds profound weight to its meaning in Christian tradition. Yet the story doesn't end there. The gate's presence in Jerusalem, a city that has endured centuries of conflict and transformation, stands as a reminder of the unbreakable nature of faith. Through all the turmoil, the Eastern Gate remains, a powerful testament to Jerusalem's enduring spirit and its unmatched significance in the spiritual lives of millions around the world. In Hebrew tradition, the Sha'ar Harakamim, also known as the Gate of Mercy, is a sacred and historically significant site. Positioned closest to the location of the ancient Jewish temple, it holds deep spiritual meaning for Jews who have gathered there to pray for centuries. This gate was sealed in 1541 by Ottoman Sultan Suleiman, but its design still reflects the architectural style of the 16th century, with a double entrance leading to two arched chambers. The Golden Gate, located on the north side of the eastern wall of the Temple Mount, has a long and layered history. It was originally built during King Hezekiah's reign, expanded under Zerubbabel, improved during the Hasmonean dynasty, and modified significantly in the Herodian period. The current gate is believed to sit atop the remains of an even older gate. Beneath the sealed structure, an ancient arch is still visible, silent evidence of the gate's deep historical roots and its role in ancient Jewish rituals. The marble pathways, but this gate wasn't just a simple entrance. According to Rabbi Eliezer, the path leading to it was paved with marble pillars and cedar boards, not for public use, but for the high priest and his attendants during major religious ceremonies. These included sacred rituals like the red heifer sacrifice and the scapegoat ceremony on Yom Kippur. This special gate, also known as the Shushan Gate, served a key role in these important religious practices. Some historians believe the gate standing today was constructed around 520 AD during the Byzantine era as part of Emperor Justinian I's building projects in Jerusalem. However, others argue that it was built later, in the 7th century, by Byzantine craftsmen under the direction of the Umayyad caliphs. But the most intriguing discovery comes from Dutch archaeologist Leen Ritmeyer, who studied the gate in the 1970s. He suggested that the massive gate posts inside the structure are remnants of an even older gate, likely the original Shushan Gate mentioned in ancient Jewish texts. The gate's significance is reinforced in the Mishnah Midot 1:3, which names it as the only gate in the eastern wall from the First Temple period. The Jewish philosopher Maimonides described how, during the Second Temple period, worshippers would enter through the East Gate, walk on a level path to the end of the rampart, and then ascend 12 steps to reach the Court of Women. Each step measured about half a cubit in height and depth, highlighting the gate's practical and spiritual role in ancient Jewish ceremonies. During the Ottoman Empire, a small area on the west side of the Golden Gate became a key spot for brickmaking. These bricks were essential for repairing and maintaining the buildings in the Haram esh-Sharif, also known as the Temple Mount. To support the brickmakers, a small mosque was built nearby, but in the 19th century, the Sultan ordered the demolition of this mosque and part of the gate's wall to make room for improvements. This led to the construction of 2 new arches and a new section of the wall on the gate's western side. But that was far from the biggest change. Reaching the gatehouse from the Temple Mount meant descending a wide staircase that led to a rectangular ground floor, measuring 24 meters long and 17 meters wide, with thick outer walls. Inside, columns neatly divided the space into two equal sections. Beneath the ground, in an underground tomb, the top of an ancient arch was partially visible, with the lower stones still buried. This revealed that the original ground level was once much lower than it is today. Later, the Ottomans converted this closed gate into a watchtower, using its solid structure for a new purpose. This transformation is just one of many changes the site has seen over the centuries. But the Golden Gate remains a masterpiece of clever design. Unlike the other gates, which blend smoothly into the surrounding walls, the eastern side of the Golden Gate juts out by 2 meters, making it stand out. The gate's 2 beautifully decorated sides reflect the incredible skill of its builders. The gate features 2 main passages, clearly visible in its design. On the ground floor, a vaulted hall is divided by 4 strong columns into 2 aisles. These aisles lead visitors to the Door of Mercy, Bab al-Rahmah, and the Door of Repentance, Bab al-Tawbah. Above, there's a room with 2 large domes and 3 pairs of smaller domes covering the paths below. But the most fascinating part lies in the eastern side's historical design. It once had 2 large doorways, each framed by a semicircular arch and a decorative band, separated by a strong central column. Each doorway measured 3.90 meters wide, but was sealed off during the Ottoman period, giving the gate a solemn and closed-off appearance. The Golden Gate's design closely resembles other structures in the Levant region, reflecting a blend of different cultural influences. Inside the main hall, which you enter through the gate's openings, is a rectangular domed space measuring 20.37 meters long and 10.50 meters wide. Originally, it had 6 shallow elliptical domes, but these were later replaced with 2 larger domes. These domes rest on arches supported by 2 pilasters at the entrances and 2 central columns, creating a graceful, rhythmic flow that guides visitors through this historic and spiritual site. But the story doesn't end there. The Golden Gate's combination of architectural elements, historical layers, and cultural influences makes it a truly remarkable part of the Al-Aqsa area. It's more than just a gate. It's a bridge through time and tradition, showcasing the exceptional craftsmanship and architectural brilliance of its creators. The fact that the facade extends 2 meters from the wall adds to the mystery, leaving us to wonder about the gate's deeper purpose and historical significance. The Golden Gate has a long and fascinating history, marked by repeated openings and closures over the centuries. Muslims first sealed it in 810. The Crusaders reopened it in 1102, but Saladin closed it again in 1187. Then, in 1541, Ottoman Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent restored the gate and the surrounding city walls, only to seal the gate permanently, a closure that remains to this day. But Suleiman's decision to seal the gate wasn't just about defense. The sealed gate, Suleiman's legacy and prophecy. Suleiman may have sealed the gate for military reasons, but religious beliefs likely influenced his choice as well. According to Jewish tradition, the Messiah will enter Jerusalem through the Golden Gate. Aware of this, and knowing that Muslims also recognize Jesus as a Messiah, Suleiman might have sealed the gate to prevent any false messiahs from entering. To reinforce this, the Ottomans built a cemetery in front of the gate, believing that Elijah, who is expected to come before the Messiah, would be unable to cross a cemetery. However, some Jewish laws allow certain exceptions for priests to enter cemeteries, adding another layer of mystery to the gate's closure. In modern times, Israeli authorities closed access to the Golden Gate on the Temple Mount in 2003 after it was found to be managed by a group linked to Hamas. They were also trying to prevent unauthorized construction by the Islamic Waqf, which was damaging ancient Jewish artifacts. Despite these tensions, the gate's interior was reopened to Muslim worshippers in February 2019. However, the gate itself remains sealed, highlighting the ongoing intersection of history, religion, and politics. Over the centuries, the walls and gates of Jerusalem have been destroyed and rebuilt countless times. The Eastern Gate stands out as the oldest, having remained in its original location throughout history. During Suleiman the Magnificent's major reconstruction of Jerusalem between 1539 and 1542, the Eastern Gate was left intact. The large stones used in its foundation date back to the 6th century BC, possibly to the time of Nehemiah, reflecting the gate's deep historical roots. But here's the most intriguing part. Suleiman's decision to seal the Eastern Gate in 1541 was more than just a construction choice. It had profound spiritual significance. It seemed to fulfill a prophecy from the biblical book of Ezekiel, written over 2,000 years earlier. For Suleiman, a Muslim ruler, to carry out an act that mirrored a Jewish prophecy is remarkable. It underscores the shared spiritual importance of Jerusalem and the deep connections between the city's history and the faiths that hold it sacred. The sealed Eastern Gate has faced its share of challenges over the years. During the Six-Day War, some Jewish soldiers wanted to force open the gate, seeing it as a powerful symbol of victory. But an Orthodox Jewish leader strongly opposed this, insisting that the gate should remain closed until the Messiah arrives, a belief deeply rooted in Jewish tradition. But that wasn't the only time the gate's fate seemed tied to larger forces. In World War I, back in 1917, Muslim authorities made plans to destroy the gate entirely, hoping to erase the power of the prophecy and assert control over the site. However, their plans collapsed when the city unexpectedly fell under British control on the very day they intended to demolish it. This twist of fate added another layer to the gate's long and mysterious history, making it feel as if unseen forces were shaping its destiny. Jewish rabbis hold a firm belief that the Messiah will come as a powerful leader from the East and will enter Jerusalem through the Eastern Gate, bringing freedom to the city. To prevent this, Muslims sealed the gate centuries ago and placed a cemetery in front of it, believing no devout Jewish leader would cross a graveyard. Ironically, this attempt to block the prophecy only strengthened the belief in its eventual fulfillment. This mix of ancient prophecies and human actions also appears in the New Testament. In Acts 2, Peter quotes the prophet Joel to explain the events of Pentecost, words often tied to the second coming of Christ. This connects back to the Golden Gate mentioned in Ezekiel 44, 1-2, where it's suggested that this gate will play a major role in future events. While Jesus never directly mentioned the Eastern Gate, Peter's reference to Joel hints at a deeper, symbolic meaning tied to this sacred spot. Perhaps the Golden Gate is a preview of what's to come. The idea of a foretaste suggests that the current gate could reflect the future Eastern Gate in the Millennial Kingdom. However, interpreting this requires balance, staying true to the Bible's teachings rather than relying solely on old traditions or signs. Some theologians debate whether Ezekiel's vision referred to the current Golden Gate or a future Temple Gate, with differing opinions on how these prophecies align. There's also an intriguing Jewish tradition that links the sealed Golden Gate to the anticipated return of the Shekinah, God's presence, in the Messianic age. This makes the Golden Gate more than just a historical landmark. It becomes a symbol of hope and divine promise. Its long closure and strategic location hint at its future role in the unfolding of God's plan. Through all these prophecies, traditions, and human attempts to control its fate, the story of the Eastern Gate remains a central thread in the complex spiritual and historical destiny of Jerusalem. Nearly 500 years ago, Sultan Suleiman, a powerful Muslim leader, made a daring decision to seal the Eastern Gate of Jerusalem with 16 feet of cement. This wasn't just about reinforcing the city's defenses, it carried deep religious significance. Suleiman likely aimed to prevent any events that could fulfill Christian prophecies about the arrival of the Messiah. The Eastern Gate, also known as the Golden Gate, holds a key place in biblical prophecies and continues to fascinate those who study religious predictions. The book of Ezekiel mentions this gate multiple times. In Ezekiel 10:18-19, it describes the glory of the Lord departing from the temple through this gate and heading toward the Mount of Olives. Later, in Ezekiel 11:23, it speaks of the glory returning from the same direction. This prophecy connects past events with future hopes, adding to the gate's mystical allure. Unlocking prophecies, the mysteries of the Eastern Gate. In Ezekiel 43:1-5, the prophet describes the glory of the Lord re-entering the temple through the Eastern Gate, symbolizing a powerful spiritual renewal. But Ezekiel 44:1-2 introduces an unexpected twist. The gate must remain shut because the Lord, the God of Israel, has passed through it, implying that no one else is worthy to enter through it afterward. Yet, the most intriguing part comes in Ezekiel 46:12, where a prince is permitted to use the gate for offerings. Many interpret this as a reference to Jesus Christ, linking it to the New Testament account in Matthew 21:1-11, where Jesus' triumphant entry into Jerusalem echoes the prophetic return of the Lord's glory. When Muslim authorities sealed the gate, some saw it as the fulfillment of the prophecy that the gate would remain shut. This act has fueled ongoing speculation that the gate will only open when Christ returns for his second coming, entering Jerusalem through the Eastern Gate, as prophesied in Zechariah 14:4. But the story doesn't stop there. This interpretation sparks debate and keeps believers watching and wondering about the future. The day the Eastern Gate finally opens could mark a moment of profound religious significance for people around the world. The Golden Gate is very important in the spiritual and historical context of Bait al-Maqdis, especially during the time when Muslims ruled the area. People like Ubadah ibn al-Samit saw deep connections between the eastern wall of this sacred place and beliefs about the end of times. Famous Islamic scholar Ibn Kathir explained that this wall is not the same as the one mentioned in the Quranic verse, so a wall will be put up between them, with a gate therein. Surah 57, verse 13. However, early Islamic scholars often used it to explain their understanding of this scripture. This explanation might have started the tradition of burying the dead just outside the eastern wall of the Al-Aqsa Mosque. The name Al-Rahmah for this gate suggests that it has ancient roots, possibly going back to when it was first built. This name hints at a deeper symbolic link to the site, especially the sacred rock associated with themes of the last day. So, Bab al-Rahmah can be seen not just as a physical gate, but as a symbolic entrance to paradise or divine mercy, adding to its spiritual importance within the community. This gate, constructed in the early days of Islamic rule, stands out as a key structure in the area. From a Jewish perspective, the Eastern Gate is also very holy. believed to be where the Shekinah, or divine presence, appeared and will appear again when the Messiah comes, according to the prophecy in Ezekiel 44:1-3. This belief shows the gate's lasting sacredness and might explain why, during medieval times, especially the Crusader period, Jews gathered here to pray for mercy at what they saw as a gateway to the divine. The Golden Gate, found in the heart of the city near the Western Wall, is rich in religious importance, earning its name Sha'ar Harachamim. In Christian writings outside the Bible, this historic gate is the setting for an important meeting between Mary's parents. This is where the idea of the Immaculate Conception begins. Many artworks show Joachim and Anne meeting here, illustrating key moments in Mary's life. Some experts believe this gate is the same as the beautiful gate mentioned in the Bible's Book of Acts, chapter 3, but this idea is debated. The confusion comes from mixing up the Latin word aurea, which means golden, with the Greek word horas, meaning beautiful. But this wasn't the only confusion about the gate. The Golden Gate also plays a big role in the story of Jesus' life. According to the Bible, Jesus entered Jerusalem through this gate on Palm Sunday, riding a donkey. This act fulfilled a prophecy made by Ezekiel 44:1-3. The Synoptic Gospels support this story, adding to the gate's historical and spiritual importance. Through these stories, the gate stands as a symbol of key moments in faith and prophecy in the city's religious history. The story starts when Jesus came down from the Mount of Olives and quickly went to the Temple Mount. This is described in Mark 11:1 and 11:11. Meanwhile, the Gospel of John tells us that the Pharisees were watching this important event, maybe from the Temple Mount as well. For those who believe in the prophecy from Ezekiel 44:1-3, the Golden Gate has a deep spiritual meaning. For Muslims, this gate is called Bab al-Rahmah, which means Golden Gate, and it's also seen as the gate of eternal life. But that's not the most interesting part. This site isn't just an old and beautiful building. It's a place filled with deep religious importance. Muslims believe this is where Allah will hold the final judgment and where the resurrection will happen. This shared respect for the same gate by Christians and Muslims shows a special connection between the two faiths, each seeing it with its own spiritual importance. But what makes this even more fascinating is how both religions find common ground in this one place. This shared significance adds a rich layer of meaning and history, making the Golden Gate a powerful symbol for both faiths, the Eastern Gate's role. The Golden Gate in Jerusalem is an important spot when talking about the coming of the Messiah, both in the past and in the future. This place is full of history and has often been the center of many arguments. Jewish customs and stories not found in the Bible inspired medieval Christian artists to depict the life of the Virgin Mary. These artists illustrated the meeting between Jesus' grandparents, Joachim and Anne, at the Golden Gate. This meeting symbolized the ideal of purity in marriage for Christians, but this wasn't the most interesting part. The tradition of a groom carrying his bride over the threshold may have started with the symbolism of the Golden Gate. In medieval art, the idea of the Immaculate Conception of Mary was often shown in paintings of the Virgin and Child with Saint Anne. These artworks, known in Italian as materza, showed 3 generations: grandmother, mother, and son, creating a visual link across the ages. This imagery had a big impact on Pope John Paul II, especially in his work, Theology of the Body. His writings, collected under the title Crossing the Threshold of Hope, aimed to deepen the faith of Roman Catholics by exploring these themes. Through his philosophical work, Pope John Paul II wanted to help believers understand the deeper meanings of these sacred encounters and symbols, encouraging a more profound engagement with their faith. Just before the start of a new millennium, many important works began to talk about the problems of materialism and the rise of secular attitudes. This time was crucial, as the difference between the physical world and the spiritual one became very clear. One strong symbol of this is the Golden Gate, often seen as representing the mystical body of the Church, which is honored as the bride of Christ in many traditions. Christian teachings about the end times, called eschatology, describe how the first light of dawn in the east reminds believers of Christ's resurrection on Easter Sunday. It also points to the direction from which Christ is expected to return. This idea is deeply rooted in Christian traditions. For example, many churches are built to face east. Additionally, the layout of many old Christian cities includes gates that open towards the east, showing this spiritual belief and expectation. But this isn't the only thing. This architectural choice shows a deep respect for the important events of Easter morning. It also reflects a hopeful look towards the future return of Christ, mixing both remembrance and anticipation, which are key aspects of the faith. But there was more to it. The emphasis on facing east in both buildings and city layouts wasn't just about direction. It was a physical manifestation of a spiritual belief. It was a way to keep hope and memory alive in the daily lives of believers. Furthermore, the symbolism extends beyond architecture. This alignment towards the east is a constant reminder of the promise of a future return, linking everyday life with profound spiritual expectations. It's not just about the past or the future, but about how these beliefs shape the present, guiding actions and decisions. But that's not all. This practice serves as a continuous thread that connects believers across time, providing a sense of unity and shared purpose. It's a daily reaffirmation of faith, bridging the gap between historical events and future hopes, making the spiritual journey a part of everyday life. In many cities, religious artifacts are placed in key locations, serving two powerful purposes: shielding the city from harm and offering blessings to travelers. Take Vilnius, Lithuania, for example. The Ostra Brahma, home to the revered icon of Our Lady of the Gate of Dawn, is honored by both Roman Catholic and Orthodox believers. This blend of protection and spirituality isn't unique to Vilnius. It's a pattern found in other historic places as well. The eastern gate of the old city, known as the Golden Gate, holds a special place in Christian tradition. It's believed to be where Mary's parents reunited after the Annunciation, making it a symbol of the virgin birth of Jesus. Some traditions also claim that Jesus passed through this gate on Palm Sunday, adding even more weight to its significance. But here's where it gets really interesting. The sealed Eastern Gate of Jerusalem isn't just a physical barrier. It's loaded with history, spiritual prophecies, and deep faith. Its story is complex and intertwined with major religious events. From its closure by Sultan Suleiman to its mention in Ezekiel's prophecies, the Eastern Gate stands as an open invitation to explore its rich and mysterious past. For believers and seekers alike, this gate represents more than just a structure. It's a bridge between the earthly and the divine. Its presence in the city's landscape speaks to centuries of faith and history. Standing closed for hundreds of years, it remains a powerful reminder of the timeless connection between humanity and the divine. Does this ancient gate's legacy truly link us to the divine, or is it just a human-created symbol? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.